What's up, guys?
Hello, welcome back
Thanks for listening to episode 14.
of The Air Fresheners. Can you tell I've been drinking?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. What are we drinking today? We're drinking kombucha beer.
No, it's not beer.
It's hard kombucha. It's basically kombucha beer.
Yes, berry ginger.
Six-
I got it from Trader Joe's.
Mm-hmm.
6.5% alcohol. So, honestly, better than most beer to drink.
Yeah. It was interesting at first, but after 3 of them, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we didn't like it at first, but now it's like, this is the best thing ever.
And we get the health benefits of kombucha while we get to drink 6.5%.
And it's fucking gluten-free. We're not, this isn't even an ad, guys. We should probably add in the name. How do you say that? Alosa?
Yeah.
Whatever. But anyway,
Either
pay
way,
us.
we're drinking it.
Okay.
So what are we talking about today?
So we're just going to go over things that inspire us. It's going to be kind of more, what is it? Spontaneous?
Freestyle,
freestyle.
Yeah.
We're just going to go back and forth about books, podcasts, and artists that inspire us. And
creative things that just give us inspiration.
Yeah. Should be good.
Yeah.
I feel like inspiration is not hard to find because I think it's more like tangible now, especially like with creativity and finding like just anything that you want, but with like social media wrapped into it, sometimes it's hard to navigate what is inspiring you and what like bullshit you're just like passing through on your feed. We talk about that sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Especially with Instagram, it's not like, you know, you see things that you don't really like give a shit about, like just personal life stuff. And I mean,
yeah, it's just content that you're constantly feeding yourself. So
yeah,
like, I know there's definitely times of when I've like followed certain people on Instagram, and I don't know if I like falsely told myself like I'm following this person to be inspired, but it's done the opposite. And if anything, it's like either like made me feel worse about the work that I put out, or it just hasn't been relevant in the way that I thought it was going to be as far as what was inspiring me. So yeah, Instagram's not really the best source of inspiration most of the time. It can be if it's used properly.
If you use it just for, or if you were to just search for like artistic things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such a huge hub of like anybody you know in a creative field, you can find that on that platform, but like it doesn't really work that way if you want to just like scroll aimlessly, unless you just follow creative people. And I do know a few people that do that.
Yeah.
And that's really respectful to me, is that they don't follow anybody unless they creatively like inspire them, which is hard because like I feel like I would annoy so many people if I did that. Just like unfollow half the people I do, but you've done that recently, right?
I've always kept my follower count pretty low just because I like to make sure my feed is with stuff that I like. And I've never understood people that follow like 10,000 people and have like 10,000 followers, because it's like that's 10,000 people that you can't like.
You don't even see everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
Like I follow like I think 700. And I don't see everybody's stuff. So
yeah, it's like 200 or something like that for me, and in literally like a couple minutes, like I can sit down and scroll through my whole feed.
Really?
For the day, and that's it. Yeah.
Damn, that's so nice.
Yeah, it's super nice. You should do it.
I'm about to lose like 500 followers.
It works.
It's okay. But yeah, I feel like when it comes to like, it's also about time management though, because the more you scroll, the more time you're spending on things you don't want to see, and it's disrespecting yourself and like your creativity.
And there's also I think a double-edged sword too with using Instagram as like your biggest source of inspiration, because if you see now, and like even over the past couple of years, like everyone is taking a picture with like those prisms and like the cubes and like shooting in reflections of water, and like every single picture looks exactly the same, just recreated. So it's like there's no real original source of creativity in the same sense that you could go out in nature and you could find another source of inspiration as opposed to just looking on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like a lot of other unique ways to be inspired besides Instagram.
Going back to like original ways to find inspiration with art, like books and magazines, even magazine content, just depending on what it is. Like don't look at tabloids, but like if you look at any sort of like artistic magazine, like travel magazines or like
Nat Geo or something like that.
Yeah, like something like that. Or if you're into like more style and like fashion, there's just so many out there. You can go to any like bookstore or like, I don't know, pretty much, I guess, a bookstore.
Yeah.
Is that it? Like, is that the only place that sells magazines? But like maybe Target or Publix has like a little bit, but like InStyle or things that have ads, but you can just find like certain ones that, like, I like Paper Magazine, I follow them, that have like strictly like portrait editorial work that can be inspiring. Yeah. So also, I fucking love Pinterest, and I sound like the most basic bitch right now, but like I have always found such like so much inspiration from that platform, because it takes away the social aspect of it, and it's just things that are like
not
creative
likes and all that stuff like that.
Yeah,
I don't use Pinterest as much as I should, but every time I use it, or every time I'm like looking to be inspired for a photo shoot, I have gone to Pinterest, and it always has given me exactly what I need. So
me too. Yeah. It's awesome.
But besides,
and the more you pin to it, the more stuff you start to see on your feed that's like relevant. It's not like the shitty like Instagram algorithm, so it's a little different.
But aside from social media, what are your biggest sources of inspiration as far as books go?
Books. Okay. I feel like we both read like a lot of like spiritual growth books. Like I don't really read anything on creativity. I don't know why. I feel like that would actually be like really helpful for me. I think because I work in a creative outlet like sporadically, especially with this quarantine, I haven't really wanted to read about creativity because I feel like I'm kind of in a rut with photography and not being able to shoot like as freely as I have been. But like, oh, I have it. This is my favorite book. It's called Big Magic, by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's called Creative Living Beyond Fear is like the title underneath. And I just pull to like any part of this book, and I feel like it's so like spirit driven for what I need. And it's awesome. Like there's just like the chapters aren't that big. I think they're like a few pages long. Like what I'm on right now is called Persistence. And like how she talks about creativity, it's unlike anything I've ever thought of it before. Like she relates to it as a spirit sense. She calls it like the genius, right? So it's like an energy you're working with when being creative, not just like with photography, but writing or, you know, drawing, things like that. Like when you have ideas of doing anything, making music, like there is a creative genius, like there is a spirit you're working with. And it's so cool. Like when she like started talking about it like that, I was like, that just frees you so much from thinking like, oh, how do I be creative? You know? Yeah. So hands down, definitely like my favorite book. It's so beat up. I think I've let like 2 or 3 people like read it, and I've like highlighted a lot of it, and like, it's just so good. Like, I think it's just something that I'm not even like recommending people read it all at once, because I've never done it. Like I've actually never read this front to back. Okay. I've always just like read individual parts. Like I think I've read most of it, but I feel like just pulling to a page and kind of being like, okay, what do I need today? And just like leaving it up. It's a very like spiritual like sense for me to read this, because you can so tell that like she's like ruled by all that in her writing. And for anyone that doesn't know, Elizabeth Gilbert is the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and she has like multiple books out, but she's just like such an incredible like author. So yeah, that's awesome. So good. And even if you're not creative, like I feel like this is such a great book to kind of ignite any creativity that you want, because I really do believe everyone is creative. Like no matter if you don't like work in a creative environment or whatever, like everyone has an outlet to express themselves, and like that's what creativity is just expression. So yeah, it's good. That's awesome. So good. Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. So like, what's your favorite book? So I have 3 main ones that I would consider to be my top 3. 2 of them are tied. I guess all 3 of them are actually tied, but they're all for different things. So my first, foremost, best book that I've read as far as personal growth and like what I get out of a book would be Psycho-Cybernetics. And there's been so much that I've learned from this, and so many times that I can just open up to like
any part of this book and get something that helps me.
Ooh, I love that.
And I've never marked up a book so much in my entire life. Like, there's lines and highlights and everything, but basically it talks about your self-image. Like, the whole idea is your self-image. So when you have like a certain self-image of yourself, like say for example you have like a positive self-image, and everything that you do subconsciously is going to be linked to that positive self-image. And in the book they call it the automatic guidance system.
Okay.
So it talks a lot about visualization. So if you're constantly visualizing yourself as like the type of person who's like successful, like who has money, who can achieve like certain goals, or like great photographer, great podcaster, something like that, everything inside of you subconsciously is going to start shifting you in that direction. And it's not like esoteric or spiritual or anything like that. It's literally like science backed. Like, the whole book is science backed.
Wow.
And it's written around like the better your self-image is, the more you're going to get out of life.
That's
and
amazing.
It's like breaking old habits of like seeing yourself as someone who's like a loser, or beating yourself up over like past failures, because it's not who you are now, it's who you were in the past. So it really helps like shape your mind around like seeing yourself in a better light.
And that's where everything starts, right? Is like how you view yourself and what you think you're worth.
Yeah.
Because when I'm at my lowest, it feels like I'm low because I am viewing myself as low. Like, I'm not worthy of things. Like, even just talking about inspiration right now, like, boosts me. Like, I feel like leveled up.
It's a good topic.
Yeah, because like when you get in those ruts of just not feeling enough, that's where like what this book is talking about. It's like all about your self-image. Like, if you don't feel enough, how are you gonna attract things that come, things don't just like land in your lap if you don't think you're worthy of them.
And another thing that it talks about too is like human beings are like goal striving machines. Like we literally like, there's a dog snoring next to us.
Like, Kygo's are like really deep into.
But there's like we all are goal oriented, like goal striving machines. So like
America.
We have like a goal and we set it, and like naturally like we're functioning our best, we're the happiest, and like we're working towards something. Because if we're not working towards anything, we're stagnant, we're not growing, and we like to grow as human beings. So always having like a goal in mind, or like a set direction that you want to work towards, this book really like
helps with that.
Yeah, helps a lot with that for sure.
Dang, that's so cool.
Yeah.
What are the other two?
The other two that would be my spiritual books. Untethered Soul for sure. I think you've also read Untethered Soul. And if you have never read that, like, don't even question it. Just buy it, get it. It's like the best spiritual book I've ever read. And then in correlation with that, The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle. And that was like the first.
Is it Eckhart Tolle or Eckhart Tolle? Because I've heard both pronounced the same.
I've heard both. Yeah, I don't know. I say Eckhart Tolle.
I do too, but like I think he might pronounce it Tolle, but it seems so fancy. So
I guess it depends where you're at in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Tolle.
So
Go ahead,
that book actually, The Power of Now, was the book that inspired me to get my first tattoo. So I have a tattoo on my wrist, and it's a reflection of a water droplet, and it's basically representing like the past, present, future, and the book is just a constant reminder to just be present and in the now. So those three books, if anyone's looking for good books to read, I recommend all three highly. Like, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So they're good.
I agree. I feel like I need to read your first recommendation because I haven't.
You should. It's great.
I'm going to steal it.
Take it.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Because not a lot of people read books these days. So
unfortunately,
if you're not a reader, how about are you a listener? Obviously you are if you're listening to this. So what's your favorite podcast?
Aubrey Marcus. For sure.
Yes.
I talked about this in a previous episode, but I can't stress it enough. I think Aubrey is like the closest thing to like where I want to be in the future. And like he's just such a good person, but he talks about like sex, psychedelics, spirituality, his experiences. He's done things like going in like complete pitch black darkness for like 7 days straight. He's done like ayahuasca ceremonies. He's had like open relationships. Like he talks about like everything, and he's had like some of the best people in the world on his podcast. So if you're looking for a good podcast, I recommend that.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What about you?
I have two, but I'm going to be quick. I have listened, or I've started listening to, it's called Expanded by Lacey Phillips.
Okay.
And she is I think she I'm going to say this and people are going to be like, oh, geez. But like a manifestation coach.
Okay.
But she's created a whole platform like and language of her own. So she talks about the manifestation energetics, and she talks about energy involved with manifesting. It's a completely different like approach to manifesting, and it's so freaking good. Like she's amazing, and it's just really helped me like look at like the whole like idea of attracting what you want differently. And she goes into like, she has all these different like courses. Like I haven't personally taken any of her courses, but like if you just listen to her podcast, like you will understand like what she's talking
listen
about.
To that sounds really good.
It's called Expanded, and it's really freaking good. Like she actually has like a whole like free like course on like quarantine energetics, and you can get into things like tapping, and she does like journal prompts in this, and yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
Like I actually need to get her membership. It's like one thing on my list to start paying for within like the next few months, because like it is going to like launch my whole life differently.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to her podcast for like well over 6 to 8 months now, so it's on my list of things to do. So yeah, she's amazing. And then I really love Life on Purpose with Jay Shetty, because he interviews like all these like really great people. Like one of my favorite episodes is with Jada Smith, which is Will Smith's wife, and she's a fucking boss. She has like Red Table Talk, and like just all these women that are in this like podcast platform or like speaking platform that I see. I'm like, oh, that's so cool, you know? And I feel like we're building the foundation of that. And I'm like, I'm going to be there one day, you know? So I really loved that one. And then he's also had like Sophia Bush on there. And then one of my favorite like spiritual teachers, Gabby Bernstein, has been on Jay Shetty too. So, and he's just like a very like beautiful British Indian dude, and his eyes are like magnetizing. So like just watching him on YouTube is like, oh, I feel enlightened already.
He's got some really good energy. I've listened to a few of his episodes. I like it a lot.
Yeah, he's just such a like humble, like beautiful person. So yeah, those are my two.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Aside from podcasts, is there any art or artists that inspire you?
Ooh, so much. Except when we first started thinking about this, I was like, who inspires me? Like I don't really know. But I found her name's Sorel Amore, or Amore, I don't know. It is Amore, I think, on YouTube. And she started with a lot of like photography tutorials, and she's just like so insane. Like I think she's like 32, but like her photography is just like so abstract. And she created this thing called the advanced selfie, and it's about like setting up your tripod and like taking photos of yourself in like a very creative way without needing a photographer.
Oh, wow.
And like there's a whole page on it on Instagram, and like anyone that's looking for like creative inspiration with like taking photos or just like blogging, filmmaking, things like that, should check out her page. She's just like a beautiful person. Like everything she does, I'm just like, wow, you just like have like this distinct like light about you.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's really great. So I think that's like the first person that comes
I'll have
to
to check her out. I like the selfie thing, because I've always wanted to get good at taking like self-portraits, but I've just never like, I don't know, never done it, and I've never tried hard enough.
Yeah, it's called the advanced selfie. So it's so good. So good. Yeah. What about you?
So my biggest source of inspiration when I started photography was, aside from you, Gareth Lewis.
Aww.
And Gareth Lewis he does female portraits, but he does like the risque and like the sexy side of things. But he does it in such a way that's like so artistic, and it really, really like captures like emotions and feelings. And a lot of people can just take a picture of like an attractive girl without her clothes on, and like there's no message or anything behind it. So like I've always looked up to his artwork as inspiration for conveying emotions, feelings, and just being able to capture that kind of thing.
Dang.
So being able to, and like he kind of tells a story too, because he's gone through like 2 or 3 relationships with people that he like started shooting with.
Oh, really?
And like over time you can see how like his captions started out with like this fiery, intense relationship with like this girl, progressed over time, and then he had like more painful captions with the same girl conveying like the same pictures, and then like the relationship ended, and like like following him for as many years as I can, you can see the story that he's telling, and it's really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that like honesty with their art, because sometimes it's so easy, especially with like, again, social media, like Instagram culture, to like get caught up into things being positive all the time. So to hear that people are honest about pain and, you know, don't use pain. There's also a trend of being like, I haven't been myself for how long, and they like write out this like in-depth like caption, and you're just like, okay, but now you've just like become better, and that's great. Like, I don't want to hear your like, I don't know, it just feels so fake sometimes. Like you can read it and realize like you're literally just like trying to come up with a deep caption, and like this just sounds so fake.
I know what
but
you mean.
Like when there's a creative like outlet behind it and you see the truth, it's so cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I agree.
Dang.
Yeah. Aside from art, is there any people in specific that inspire you?
Damn. I feel like I should have at least like 2 or 3 people off the top of my head that inspire me, or even people that inspire me that I know. I don't know. That's rough. And that kind of makes me think about like, why am I not looking up to people to try to like be better?
Yeah. That's
know?
a good perspective.
Let me think about it. Do
okay.
you? Do
yeah,
you
I have a few. Well, Aubrey Marcus for one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the people that I read in like self-help books, there's a few that I really like Gary Vee, for example. I look up to Gary Vee a lot.
I love him.
There was definitely a phase of when I was watching a whole lot of Grant Cardone, but my life has kind of like shifted in a different direction, so I don't watch him as much. But Grant really helped me with a lot of mindset stuff for a while. And then I look up to my mom for like as strong as she is. And that would be the main people that come to mind as far as like my big sources of inspiration. I don't really look up to any politicians or anything like that. So.
Yeah, no one like comes to mind like famous wise, but I mean like a few people that like really inspire me like on a day-to-day life is my friend Reba, who's been in New Zealand for like 2 years now almost, and she kind of just like picked up and moved, which was, you know, you hear of people having that like wanderlust like lifestyle, but like she's really doing it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
She bought a van with like her boyfriend who she met out there, and she's always like really inspired me. Like she's just like a lifelong friend that just like lives out her life, and like when you meet her, she just has an energy about her that you know is like so authentic, and it's hard to come by, you know. So when it comes to living like presently and just being a good human, I think of her, and she's so fun. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. And actually the reason I live in St. Pete is because I moved into the house that she was living in 2016. So I don't know, I feel like she's paved a way for me.
Yeah,
a lot.
That's amazing.
A lot of things she's paved a way for me. So I love you if you're listening. And then who else? I feel like there's certain people that I listen to. Maybe Gabby Bernstein that I was just talking about. She's an author and well-known spiritual teacher, and she's just like had such a crazy history. She's been like sober, I think, since she was like 25. She was like heavily into drugs, and now she's just like a best-selling author of like 8 books or some shit.
Wow.
And she's on it. Like if you just like listen to anything she has to say, she's like one of the original like attracting, like manifesting type of coaches.
Yeah,
and she does it in such a light. So yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's probably who inspires me. But this is also going to be like something I want to keep thinking about. Yeah. Because now that I recognize that I can't think of one person that I'm like, ooh, this is who I want to be, or like someone that's like driving me to be more, kind of like sets a red flag that I should be like thinking about that more, or just like dreaming of things more. I don't feel like I do that a lot. Do you?
I mean, yeah, my head's usually always in the clouds, but I could
That's
definitely,
cool.
I could definitely be looking to people for some more inspiration because, like, I think back to like the peak times of like my life last year and the
Mhm.
time before, and like I was spending way more time listening to the people that I was inspired by, and this year not so much. I mean, coronavirus and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
like still at the same time, like I was spending like a few hours a day like listening to people and like watching people and podcasts and like reading books and stuff like that from people who inspired me. So
Wow.
it'd be nice to get back to that because that really, I don't know, just put me in a really good spot.
Yeah.
So,
You see your energy change.
yeah.
This is the perfect time to start. I feel
Yeah.
like even opening these books, like we were just like looking at what we were going to talk about, and it was like, ooh, like I literally feel like the inspiration in
Yeah.
this. Like you can sense the energy of why it's our favorite, and like it doesn't matter any of these things that we're talking about, especially since they're kind of spirit based.
Mm-hmm.
They don't lose power after you've read them once.
No.
And sometimes I can't get that in my head. It's like reading a book isn't like watching a movie. Like for me, I like to watch things once and then I never watch them again because I'm like, okay, that's a waste of time if I watch it a second time. But
Yeah.
books aren't supposed to be that way. I don't think.
Even opening back up Psycho-Cybernetics again, I was looking at some things that I highlighted and wrote down, and like I don't even remember like when
Remember
my
it.
head was like, yeah, that's a great idea, write that down, because like
Yeah.
you're constantly changing, so it's kind of like a time capsule to come back in, and like every time you reread a book, you find something new.
It
Inside the
is.
book.
And you don't, like you said, you don't remember everything you write down. I think like when you highlight something or you underline it or whatever, it's like your brain being like, you're going to need to see this again.
Yeah.
Like you need to read this again, and not thinking of it as like, oh, I read that, check. Like it's more like open this book up regularly and like listen to this, like actually read this,
Mhm.
you know? But Yeah.
Between like music, art, people, nature, travel spots, podcasts, whatever it is, there's all kinds of inspiration out there.
Mhm.
And like I think everyone has their own way of being inspired.
yeah.
And I think if you put your phone down for a little bit and find different ways to get yourself inspired, you'd be surprised what that could do for you.
Yeah, I think like just detaching from our phones to find like comfort is so important right now. I think
Mhm.
it's like the easiest thing to just indulge in some sort of like distraction at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. I'm not saying that I sit at home and meditate for like 7 hours. I'm just saying that
If only.
taking a break for like even an hour or two, it does something different to
Yeah.
your brain.
Just find a new source of inspiration. Even if you're not like working on a creative project, just, I don't know.
I mean, if
find
people
something
are
to get
listening to
inspired
this,
on.
I feel like that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's
For
getting
sure.
you out of that thought loop of like Instagram or, anything else. So,
Yeah.
I mean, good job for listening to us.
Yeah. thanks
Pat
for
on the
listening,
back.
guys.
Awesome. Thank you. We will be back next
Be
week.
back 15 and 16 next week.
Woo. Okay. Bye.